Okay, but render time, and render time means lighting time. The two are pretty much intrinsically linked as far as I'm concerned. Now, before we go any further, Dreadnought, you're probably wondering about the textures I used for this. I didn't have time to go out and unwrap the entire bloody lot, so I built a texture, and I shall show you what it is. Here it is here. It's the one underneath this, actually. There it is there, and it's an ink and paint material, okay? All it is, I built an ink and paint. I put a noise map here. Just pause it if you want to look at my settings to control the actual ink width with a minimum and maximum set here. Ink quality at 3. And then I put a material to shader in all these slots. So for the lip part, I've got this, which is a metallic paint in blue. And then for the darker parts here, I've got metallic paint dark. Okay, easy enough, and it just highlights. I've also got this thrown in as well, which has been thrown in on, I think, here we are, Pro Materials Metal. So that basically, it calculates where the edges are on this, and it puts the dark metal in. It's a nice way of highlighting and adding a slightly worn look to the metal, and it works quite well. Okay, now let's get on with this again. Because I'm going to light this, and because I'm going to use global illumination, I need to prepare this building first. Reason being, well, there's a couple of reasons. The main one, though, is that our building is, well, it has no outside, which means that when we set our sun up over here to shine down its merry rays, they're going to shine through the wall and completely ignore any lighting simulations that we have going on. So we need to get around that. So what I'm going to do is hit F4, and I'm going to build a simple outside to our building. There, come round, and there, and bridge. Same again. Don't worry about this texture that we've got on here. I've decided personally I don't like it anyway, so I'm going to get rid of it in a minute. Okay, so if I'm going to get rid of it, might as well do that now actually. Materials. Here's the three materials we've got going on here. Or are they up here? Here they are. So I'm going to change these. This is going to become a ray trace standard. And I'll give this a nice mid-range. This one's going to become a darker ray trace standard, which means it'll be faster as well when it comes to render time, which is good. There you go. And this one here, another ray trace, and maybe make this one white. There we go. Gives us much more interesting contrast on this as well. Okay, now I'm going to grab here, just using the border tool, and scale it up like so. Once I've scaled this up a bit, I'm then going to scale it out and move it along. Make sure it encompasses everything, then shift and drag. Whee! I'll just drag it along one axis rather than two, I think. And then click cap. There we go. So now this is, if I go to my camera 1, an actual solid shape, and light will not pass through it. Okay, so one of the first things I'm going to need to do then, now that I've put everything else back in my scene, is build some lights. And we're going to use a photometric, well, no, we're going to use a daylight system, sorry, not photometric. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off first of all over here in my tool, in my systems, create system daylight. I'm creating a daylight system. It is recommended that you use the MR photographic exposure control. Alright, yes. That'll automatically set up in our environments tab, which we will look at shortly. Now I'm going to drag out a daylight system just here, and then bring that up like so. Alright, next. I'm going to change this from date, time and location to manual. This means I can now move this around, which I shall immediately proceed to do. And if I go into my camera 1, you can see everything's all washed out. Well, that's okay. That's because we haven't got it set up as a mental ray light yet. Let's just change this to mental ray sun and change this to mental ray sky. Okay, next. Let's go over here to our renderer. I just hit F10 there. And we're going to check enable final gather. And we're going to set everything down to draft for the moment. Really, really low. No diffuse bounces. And under renderer, quarter and 4 seems okay for minimum and maximum. That's moderate anti-aliasing. Let's have a quick look at the size as well of the actual render. We'll make a 640 by 480 because it requires slightly less processing. Okay, now if you want to know what it looks like, first of all we're going to dive into the environments and effects. So I just hit 8, and you'll see here exposure control set to MR. If we render preview, we'll get a little box that will show us what it looks like. Just wait a few. There, so we can see what it looks like more or less here. You can see the light coming in, the shadows hitting this. It's a little bit dark, but I'll show you again. Just going to hit F9 and have a little rest. Okay, and there you can see it now. It's rendered it out. We've got the basic windows going down here. Now, what we need to do is add slightly more realism to this, because there's not really a lot of light coming in. It's more or less, even though we've got the sun coming in, it may as well be a total eclipse, to be quite honest. So what we're going to do is use a secondary kind of light. So what I'm going to do over here is select lighting, and we're going to build mental ray sky portals. So jump into perspective and get to our building, which is just down here. Looks like my old classroom at school at the moment from this angle. Okay, and I'm going to draw out my sky portal, which is just here. And then I'm going to flip it so it's facing the right direction. And then I'm going to hang it literally over the window. So just get it so it's in the right position more or less. There we go. And I'm going to change just a couple of settings on it. Okay, and then what I want to do is just make sure from outdoors is checked, and I'm going to drag it 3 times. 1, and this is going to simulate for us our windows. 2, 3. Okay, jump back into our camera again, and just pick a suitable frame. Oop, that was the floor I just moved there by mistake. Okay, and I'm going to click F9 again. Okay, you can see how that looks now. We've got some clarity, but we could do with picking up the light in here, and that's actually quite easy. All I need to do is just press 8 to bring up my environments and effects again. Now at the moment our exposure value is 15, so if I bring this down, and you can see what's happening up there, you'll see the light in our scene really bumps up now. And we can also just crank up here our image precision. I'm going to make our final gather precision low as opposed to, draft. And I'm going to increase the number of bounces up to 1. Now we've already got additional light bounces anyway for each one of these little windows here that we've created with our MR skylights. So when I render this time, which is going to take even longer, it should look a lot better. So I'm going to pause it and render. There, that's not too bad. A little bit too light possibly. So I might just darken it a little bit more, maybe give it an exposure value of 13 instead. That's a bit better. Okay, well, we know what this is going to look like, so I'll probably render it again soon. Meantime, let's do something about what's outside the window, which at the moment is nothing. However, it looks messy, so what I'm going to do is just make a box, just so I can stick it outside the window like this. Convert to editable poly. Take off at least 2 or 3 of these polygons. There we go. Right click, go to object properties, and let's see, it's not going to cast shadows, it's not going to receive shadows. Click OK. Now if I go over here to my materials, and in here I'm going to give a nice white, and in the white I'm going to make it self-illuminated, and then just drag it. Okay, now if I go back to my camera, there. That loses us the like mad looking outside that we've got going on, so we can have pretty much whatever we want going on now. And now it's just a case of hitting the final render button, and we should get a nice render. So this should be it, hopefully. You have your animation, you have your cloth, you have materials, you've unwrapped, you've done Photoshop stuff, we've done particle stuff. We've built an environment, even though it was a simple one. We've lit the environment, even though it was a simple one. I've even gone so far as to add edge checks to it, like so. To be quite honest, I think we've taken this as far as we can. And it's good to see the Dreadnought finished, and I hope you've enjoyed following along and doing it. The very first Dreadnought I did, of course, was a low polygon affair, which is still available in the free area. The second Dreadnought was a kind of rebuild of that, and one of the first high detailed mechanical tutorials or as far as I'm aware, anyone had kind of done at that point, because this was quite a while back. In what, 2004 was it? So this obviously is the newest piece, and I'm very pleased with it, and I hope you have a lot of fun with it, and I hope you get a lot of learning from it. And I'm going to render this now and leave you with a final image. And that's it. We're done. That is our Venerable Dreadnought as part of the Dreadnought Workshop set. I'm going to make some private larger renders, but overall I'm very pleased with this. So I hope you've enjoyed the set. Thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this, don't forget to try out some of the other sets. Like, well, you probably enjoy the Crux. You'd love the Ed 209 set. Plenty of other stuff. Till then, bye-bye for now.